it be known? Should it be that I'm there and they harming these children? They can call the police all they want to, because I'm not going nowhere. I'll be right there, because these children are doing things. You know, they could be out doing bad things, but they chose to become entrepreneurs. You know, and like it says, it takes a village to raise a child. And everybody should be watching out for these children. With all these people going around trying to harm these kids, steal these kids and stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be the one going around my neighborhood watching out for my children, because they are my children. Chief Red, I appreciate the job that you've been doing. But there's some people out there mumbling and grumbling and talking about what they would do to you if they saw you in person. But I let them know, you mess with my sister, you mess with me. And I don't care how many police officers she has around me. She got one that she don't even have to pay. I got her back. You know, and this is ridiculous. You know, these children ain't doing nothing to nobody. You know, and I've been around here for a long, long time. I was under your dad, Mayor. I was a building inspector for your dad and for Charles Marks. I love this city, and we shouldn't have to go through all this garbage that we're going through now. Because I tell you, we have a president. All he's doing is sowing discord. And the thing of it is, we had people voting for him. Oh, he's going to do this, and he's going to do this. My Palestinians, see what he's doing to you guys. Get out of your own land.
Thank you.
Keep your eyes open.
Our next speaker is Prophet Yusuf.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In the book of Psalms, 121st chapter, the first to the second verse, it says, I look to the hills which comes my help. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. What I want to speak about tonight, forgotten heroes. Fighting Germans and Jim Crow, about 2,000 black soldiers stormed Normandy while serving in a still segregated military. It was the most massive amphibious invasion the world has ever seen, with tens of thousands of Allied troops spread out across the air and sea, aiming to get a toehold in Normandy for the final assault on Nazi Germany. And while portraits of D-Day often show an all-white army, in fact, it also included black soldiers. Roughly 2,000 black soldiers hit the shores of Normandy in various capacities on June 6, 1944, serving in the United States military, still segregated by race. They encountered discrimination both in the service and when they came home. But on Normandy, they faced the same danger as everyone else. The only African-American combat unit that day was the 320 Barrage Balloon Battalion, whose job was to set up explosive rigged balloons in her German plane. Waverly Woodson Jr. was a corporal and a medic with the battalion. Although Woodson did not live to see this 75th anniversary, he died in 2005. He told Associated Press in 1944 about how his landing craft hit a mine on the way to Omaha Beach. The tide brought us in, and that's when the 88 hit us. He said of the 88, the Germans' 88 millimeter gun, they were murdering us. Of our 26 Navy personnel, there was only one left. They raked the whole top of the ship and killed all the crew. Then they started with the mortar shell. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland is heading an effort to have Woodson awarded the Medal of Honor for his action on D-Day. Another member of the unit, William Dabney, described what they encountered on D-Day. In a 2009 Associated Press interview, during the invasion, the crime was furious on the beach. I was picking up dead bodies. I was looking at the mines blowing up the sailors and soldiers. I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. Said that who passed away. Lena Hurwitz detailed the exploit of the 329th in her book, Forgotten. The untold story of D-Day. Black heroes at home. And she said the military resisted efforts to desegregate as it ramped up for World War II. Instead, they kept separate units and separate facilities for blacks and whites. African Americans, people, don't believe the lies they say about our people. Our people have fought and died for the United States. So thank God for all better. Welcome back home. I did 19 years, 11 months, 29 days, 1 hour, 10 minutes, 15 seconds. And I did 3 tours in the United States Navy. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to the public, we do not allow standing in the room, so if you could please find a seat. If you cannot find a seat inside of council chambers, there is an opportunity for you to either watch the television outside of these doors over the balcony, or you can go down to the first floor and watch council from there. If there are no chairs set up down there right now, there will be some on the way in just a few moments. Also, if any chairs do become available after public speaking, feel free to come back in once others do leave. All right. Our next public speaker is Mary Ann Leonard.
I'm here to ask that the Welcome to Rockford sign be all-inclusive. I've heard that somebody's suggesting making a change that would be a limiting message. I simply want it to say, welcome to all, Rockford.
Right. Our next public speaker is Sally Candago.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Suli Cadengo, and I've been a proud resident of Rockford for the past 40 years. I stand here before you today to express my unwavering support for the Rockford All People Are Welcome sign. It was shortly after founding my business in 2018 that I became aware of larger issues regarding inclusion in Rockford, which prompted me to get involved in the community. I wanted to help ensure that all residents feel at home and valued, something I didn't always experience growing up here. Selfishly, I also aim to contribute my small grain of sand to creating a better city and environment for the family I'm raising. In recent years, I have witnessed a remarkable transformation in our community. Our city has embraced inclusivity, hosting community and family-oriented events that celebrate our diverse backgrounds. At these gatherings, I have seen firsthand how residents from various cultures come together, share stories, and build relationships. Most importantly, I have never experienced violence at any of these events, only camaraderie and joy. Rockford's commitment to inclusivity has not only improved our community spirit, but has also garnered national attention. Recent data highlights that our crime rates have declined, and Rockford is increasingly recognized as one of the best places to live. This is a testament to our collective efforts to create a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. I want to address a misconception that welcoming all people somehow invites criminal behavior. This assertion is not only unfounded, but also ignorant. There is no data supporting the idea that cities with welcoming messages experience increased crime rates. In fact, many communities that embrace inclusivity see improved safety and cohesion among residents. I urge you to consider how keeping the All People Are Welcome sign will reflect our city's values. This message does not diminish Rockford. Rather, it enhances our reputation as a compassionate and inclusive community. We want to attract new residents, visitors, and businesses who value diversity, and a welcoming sign sends a clear message that Rockford is a place where everyone can thrive. Let us not be swayed by fear and divisive rhetoric. Instead, let us stand together and affirm that Rockford is a community that welcomes all people while maintaining safety and respect for one another. Keeping the sign as is will only strengthen our community and show the world that we embrace our differences. Thank you for your time, and I hope you support the resolution to keep Rockford All People Are Welcome sign. Together, let's continue to build a city that's a beacon of hope and inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Suli, I apologize for mispronouncing your name before. Our next public speaker is Janie Wilson Cook.
I will be reading a letter that I sent to my alderperson, Ms. Torina, earlier today. Apparently, there is a resolution to be considered at tonight's meeting to affirm the sign at the I-90 and East State Street entrance, which says, Rockford, all are welcome. In response to a complaint from Alderman Thunberg, Ward 3, the alderman's comments during the February 10, 2025 meeting opposing the message on the sign were reflective of very recent anti-immigrant messaging heard at our federal level, which is not in keeping with the U.S. Constitution concerning the fair treatment of all people under the law. Alderman Thunberg's comments also flout the spirit and meaning of the Equal Protection and Equal Rights sections of the Illinois Constitution. Every single citizen of Rockford, now or in their family's past, is an immigrant to the Rock River Valley, which, before Germanicus Kent, Thatcher Blake, and Lewis Lemon discovered the ford over the Rock River, was, until 1834, populated solely by the indigenous peoples of the Winnebago and Potawatomi tribes. It's way too late to stop welcoming immigrants. As a born and raised citizen of Rockford, a 34-year resident of the 5th Ward, and the wife of a naturalized American, I express support for the resolution affirming this inclusive and welcoming message for all of Rockford. I am acting as an individual and not on the behalf of any organization, civic or religious. In a land of immigrants, it's not brave for me to stand up for equality. It is far more braver to declare one is more entitled just because their ancestors arrived here earlier. Thank you.
Thank you to our public speakers. We'll move right into tonight's agenda. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Here.
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 Thank you. Item 1 under committee reports is an approval of the workforce development agreement between the City of Rockford and LT Construction for the not to exceed amount of $675,000. The funding source is revenue replacement through the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Alderwoman Torina.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on your committee. A couple questions. Can you give me sort of a timeline? Because I thought, like, originally that we were giving like $250,000. Maybe I have my numbers wrong, but I do notice an increase in the funding. And I also noticed that the funding source for this is specifically ARPA, and I thought we were out of ARPA funds. So can we just kind of explain like where the money's coming from? I thought ARPA funds were used up for one.
Yeah, so ARPA funds were set aside for a certain number of years for this program, so we're kind of reaching towards the tail end of that allocation.
Okay.
So.
And then we increased this to $675. Was it a lower dollar amount before?
It was slightly lower, but in the past we've typically had to come back and ask for more so that they could complete the training. So they've been getting more work done than originally anticipated, which is driving the cost up a little bit.
Can you tell me what it was last time?
I think we went to council with like $525,000 initially last year, and then we had to come back for like another $100,000.
Okay. And then my final question is, how are we selecting these sidewalks?
So we've been, with this program, we have been focusing on gaps and sidewalk repairs and replacements near schools and parks, highly traveled areas, things like that. So that's what our focus has been.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Clerk, will you please call the roll? Aye.
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 Thank you. That item passes. Item 1 under resolutions. Item 1 is a proposed resolution to recognize migratory birds and Migratory Bird Day in the city of Rockford. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Item 2 is an adoption of the Housing Strategy Framework. The Housing Strategy Framework will serve as the guiding document for City of Rockford housing policies, programs, and initiatives. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. Is there any comments or questions? Alderwoman Meeks?
I spent a lot of time focused in another area, so I didn't really have an opportunity to really review this in the way that I want to. And so I feel like I want to lay this item over if possible. Can I make a motion to lay this item over? Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments on the layover?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sarah.
Item 3. Item 3 is a proposed resolution to support City of Rockford welcome sign on East State Street and I-90. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the item? I'm sorry. Before we go into questions or comments from the council, I would like to allow Administrator Cagnoni an opportunity to discuss this item.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just to give a little bit of background information related to the landscaping and signage that's up there for consideration. You know, the signage and landscaping is a result of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Rockford and the Illinois Tollway, which was first completed in 1991. At that point in time, the structures that currently exist and landscaping was installed. Later in 2017 and 2018, the Illinois Tollway had a significant capital improvement out on the property, which resulted in a revised intergovernmental agreement coming before City Council, which was subsequently approved. That intergovernmental agreement allowed for a joint investment to revamp the existing landscaping, lighting, and signage out at the property. The vast majority of the landscaping improvements were done by the Illinois Tollway at an amount of approximately $185,000. Within the IGA, it identified an additional $30,000 investment that would be coming from the City of Rockford. The City of Rockford partnered with RACVB and Go Rockford on the project. It ultimately became also a part of the Forest City Beautification Project at that time. Predominantly, the work done by the City of Rockford included some minor landscaping, uplighting for the sculptures and signage that was out there, as well as the revamp of the signage that currently exists today. So an artist by the name of Justice Rowe was commissioned to do the mural that sits on the sculptures. Ironically, there's an article in the Chicago Sun-Times over the weekend talked a lot about the murals that he's done throughout the Chicago area, and so that portion was completed by him. The wording was identified by Graham Spencer, Dre Graham, and it was tied to a larger business attraction strategy that had taken place. And he identified this language through a series of studies that suggested and aligned the business attraction to fill high-skilled jobs within our community. Communities that had language similar to this were successful at a greater result of attracting individuals to the community in an effort to help drive and create economic wealth for the community. During that time, that signage was shared with the administration. As Mayor McNamara has stated in the past, he approved the signage that was identified, and ultimately that sign was constructed. You may recall that, since that time, a few things that have taken place related to signage. That's also been part of our recent conversations. There was an investment, and I believe it was ARPA dollars, or maybe it was surplus funds, I forget which one it was, to do some corridor signage. And there was quite a bit of discussion related to City Council approving corridor signage that would come forward in the future, and certainly should there be a revamp of this sign, it would fall under that circumstance. There is a resolution within your packet affirming council support of the existing signage as was referred in by Alderman Bonney last week. I know that there was some communication with our legal department and Alderman Bonney that didn't get connected until later today, when there was the possibility of an amendment to the resolution that future signage changes come before City Council. Certainly that could be a friendly amendment of the Planning and Development Committee, and we would have no objection on a staff level, as we believe that to be the circumstance as it currently exists now. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Thunberg, I'll start with you.
Thank you. And thank you to all who reached out today. Had some great civil conversations and had some very lively couple emails, to say the least. So for those of you who have come here tonight, thank you for showing your vigor and such within our community. To give a little timeline going back, some people on council were here at that time, some people were not. Some of you may have heard me talk about this previously during this timeline. Going back a number of years, approximately 7 or so years ago, there was talk on City Council on becoming a sanctuary city. It was termed a welcoming city. There was vigorous debate. Myself pointed out specifically a part of the ordinance that had stated so my question was, according to what this ordinance had stated, was if there was an individual who was pulled over, according to the ordinance, as long as they produced a valid government-issued identification card, that no further questions could be asked. So my follow-up to legal was, if an individual produced a ID that was coming from North Korea, Iran, some country that maybe is on our terrorist list, that law enforcement officer would not be able to ask any more questions. Our city legal director had given the answer that that is correct. So I had an issue with that. A few other aldermen stated their issues. I think there were maybe some aldermen that maybe hadn't, due to possibly no fault of their own, read through it as thoroughly as a few of us did. But it was apparent at that time that Rockford wasn't at that time ready to be a sanctuary city. It died. In fact, it didn't even come up for vote. It just died on the floor for the most part, if I remember correctly. So, again, a week or two later, as I've stated here before, the Rockford paper did an op-ed and pretty much reamed on Alderman Durkee and I for speaking up against it, but failed to even mention Alderwoman Hervey, who was adamantly against it. So I think it made for a good story, I guess, to fit the narrative that you went after the white male Republicans, but you failed to mention a black female Democrat. I can handle it. I can handle it. But I just don't know why. I don't know why that was the case. Because there was someone that spoke up, Alderwoman Hervey, as much I think as we did. But going forth, we did not vote on becoming a sanctuary city. Shortly thereafter, the sign had gone up, and I started receiving calls, are we a sanctuary city? And I didn't know we were a sanctuary city. So I had stated, no, we're not a sanctuary city. And they said, well, it pretty much says that on the sign. And other sanctuary cities were using that line at the time. So fast forward, if individuals other than the mayor, the police, the county coroner, maybe the state's attorney, many people don't hear about the crime in Rockford as we do, as aldermen. As time goes on, my thoughts were, I don't care if someone is from out of this community, out of this country, or has resided in this community for 50 years, grew up in this community. My constituents' number one issue, bar none, is crime. Speeding may be a close second. But bar none, taking care of crime in our community is number one with my constituents. So as we've had individuals that have come from outside our community, they've come from Elgin. You may remember again in the last year or two, which I talked about at another time, we had 2 young girls kidnapped, I think ages around 9 and 11 or so. One was murdered, another one escaped. We had a 75-year-old woman on the bike path recently. She was beaten and then raped, and that was by an individual apparently here for a short time from either Venezuela or Honduras. We've had a number. We have a family peace center that we talk about all the time of domestic violence that takes place in our community. And I bet a lot of that is homegrown, people that live within our community. So I don't care whether someone comes from outside our community or lives within our community, is homegrown, grew up here their whole life, they're a citizen or they're a non-citizen. My constituents care about crime, and I don't want criminals in Rockford. I don't care where they're from. Most people don't want criminals in their community. So that is where all of a sudden how this turned into, for this to turn into then everything else, I'm sorry for that happened, that turned into that. But this was something on Monday that I had stated my piece on. At the end, I did say that if this sign stays up, that's what it's going to be. At least we know that going forth, that this sign, or at least we know going forth, that signage within our wards and within the city generally will have to go through the respective alderman or council's approval. This was one that did not, and at the beginning, I was getting it from the other side. How can we be a sanctuary city? This is crazy. Everything else we're not a sanctuary city. Now I'm getting from this side the other side. So just realize that you get it from both sides. And so if you want to then state everything, which I think you should, be transparent, that is what the position is. But at the end, when Alderman Bonney, when I stated that, I was done. That was it. Sign's going to be there, fine. But we know that signage going up is not going to cause this kind of controversy going forth, because the aldermen and the city council will have a say in the matter. And Alderman Bonney, and I'm not putting anything forth on you because you thought it the best at the time. I'm sorry, 14th Ward Alderman. That we put a motion up to vote on it. So there was no, as someone told me today, I heard you put a motion up to council to vote to take down the sign. No, that is false and untrue. So that's where we stand right now. Today I had a call, in fact, probably about an hour conversation. I found out today, as I told the mayor earlier in chairman's meeting, that I learned more today about this sign than I did in 7 years. I just found out today who actually came up with the verbiage of the sign. And in fact, this person who did that called me today because they're a personal friend of mine. And so they felt horrible on some of the things they were reading. And so we had a great civil conversation, as I did with some others today. People like Beth, who reached out, had a great conversation with her. But this individual and I who came up had a great conversation. He understood some of my points with crime in our community. And again, not associating it with that. And so he understood it, and I understood his point. And what was nice to hear was that point of it was that he did, which Administrator Cagnoni talked about. I think he was sorry to see that this has caused the divide in the community from the onset to now this part. He had said, Chad, this was really to try to draw people here for the needed jobs such as at Woodward and UTC, and he explained thoroughly and candidly and very transparently what his intentions were, and I fully understood that. And so I will close now for many people, thank goodness. Yeah, thanks. So that to those individuals out there who believe that sign means that we are a sanctuary city, it does not. And for individuals who think anybody who has any thoughts on that, it's completely two different things. And so for individuals that like the sign, It's going to stay, and I think that those individuals also can realize that it does not mean that all people are welcome, meaning criminals, and that means that. So, thank you.
Before we go into further comment or questions, or allow Mr. Cagnoni to respond to some of the comments concerning Alderman Thunberg, I'd just like to state that I know that this is a very sensitive topic for many of us. However, we will not tolerate any disruption of the City Council meeting. That being said, if it does continue, you will be asked to leave. Any other questions? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Cagnoni, did you want to respond? Clarify the sanction comment?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just to elaborate in regards to Alderman Thunberg's statements that we are not a sanctuary city. Sanctuary city was not under consideration. I believe the references was to the welcoming ordinance, and I mean there's a distinction between a sanctuary city and a welcoming community. Generally, a sanctuary city limits cooperation with immigration authorities, and that's not the practice, policy, or adoption of our city council, where a welcoming community focuses on creating a supportive environment for immigrants. And we certainly do that as a community now. There's a number of programs from YMCA, YWCA, Catholic Charities, RVC, School District 205. We speak 70 languages in School District 205, so that is a robust part of our overall community. At the same time, reduction in crime and crime prevention. This council has invested extremely heavily in crime reduction, whether that's traditional policing through our Rockford Police Department or other initiatives such as the Family Peace Center, as mentioned by Alderman Thunberg. We don't want murderers. We don't want rapists. We don't want individuals that own drug houses and grow houses within our community. Those type of activities have the tendency to lead to violent crime within our community. We want to make sure that we are attacking that information. I would also say that even though that the welcoming ordinance never brought forward to City Council for consideration, we did land on language that's relative, right? City Council, this council in January 2022 did adopt guiding principles. And they were related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and says Rockford provides a welcoming, nurturing, inclusive community that values our diversity, where community members feel safe and respected. Ultimately, the resolution in front of you relays the language that council already approved, as well as affirming the existing sign that's up at I-90 in the tollway.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Alderwoman Torino.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on your committee. First, I want to just thank the residents. I personally love it when we see you guys show up. We love it when it's not empty behind us and people stand up for things in our community. It's very, it's noble and it's appreciated, and I want to see more of it. Thank you specifically to the residents that did reach out to me. I responded back to everyone. I will absolutely not be voting to change a sign. It's ridiculous. But I was just, in my own research, there was something that I read. I don't have the source, but it's quick and it's sweet, and I thought it just kind of sums up how I feel about this. Crime is about behavior, not identity. Criminal activity is not tied to any race, nationality, or immigration status. Studies show that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than native-born citizens. Conflating the two spreads harmful misinformation and distracts from real solutions to public safety. So I thought that was a great summary. My question, though, is this. We as a city council, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, we sat and voted, and wrote it together. We also voted on a city value statement. Can you find that and read that? Please.
Which, are you referencing the resolution related to the guiding principles?
Something, it was like guiding principles or like a value statement. When Ms. Candango read her public comments, it made me think that we sat and came up with like a value statement for our city, some guiding principles for our city, and there had to be some sort of like summary statement that we all agreed upon. I'd like to know what that was.
So you most certainly, the guiding principles came out of a couple of working sessions that City Council had and ultimately voted on in January 2022. I don't see that there's a summary statement attached to it, but there is a lot of statements related to leadership and communication, finance and infrastructure, safety, business climate, quality of life, neighborhoods, education, health, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the last statement I read related to Rockford provides a welcoming, nurturing, inclusive community that values diversity, where community members feel safe and respected. That is one of the guiding principles that City Council created and then ultimately approved.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alderman Bonnie? I got you. I got him.
Oh.
Go ahead.
First a question. The alderman from the 3rd Ward, and I was off topic, had a conversation with someone in the media today, and I think we also ought to consider changing our rules so that we don't have to refer to each other as aldermen from the ward, because it's very news media unfriendly, because nobody's going to want to use a comment that says alderman from the 3rd Ward, begs the question, who are you talking about? Anyhow, when Alderman Thunberg mentioned that we now have an agreement of the council to have future signage, corridor signage, welcome signage, require city council approval. We've had that discussion on the council floor, but we haven't actually approved anything in writing to that effect, have we? It's a question for the city administrator.
I know that we articulated that, future signage that would come before the committee or was sponsored or approved or funded through City Council, for lack of a way of defining the type of signage that we're talking about, we would bring forward to City Council. And for the most part, that type of signage is typically going to come through council one way or another, but we want to be more specific to the will of council to identify what the signage is, the specifics, so that it gets approved as part of any package.
So are we going to receive that in writing at some point? I mean, the email I sent today was really along the lines of, and to be more specific about, I think, what Alderman Meeks was referring to. This was forwarded to me, and I didn't look at it until today, because 7 of us are up for re-election tomorrow. That's what I think you're referring to. And that's why I didn't look at it until today. I mean, I knew it was coming. I spoke with the mayor about it, but I didn't actually look at it till today. So if that's not coming, and I'm not asking the committee to amend it. I will amend it when it comes to council next week, so that it also includes it. Because I think Alderman Thunberg has a good point. We wouldn't be having this conversation, probably. I don't think we'd be having it if it had received a council approval in the first place. And that's why I requested that we vote on it now, so that it does have council approval, and that we don't have to continue having this conversation. I think Alderwoman Turina talked about I'm not sure why, and I heard some of the same thing. There seems to be some confusion that we're voting tonight to change the sign, when the resolution clearly says we're voting tonight to affirm our support for the message. So that is my intent, that in making it, not to be clear, not to change the sign. I guess my only other comment really is that it's unfortunate that we now live in times where all are welcome can't be just taken at face value, and that it has to, that it's, that there's subtext and, hidden meaning and concern that it's a bipartisan message. And I get that. I mean, those are the times we're living in. But I think half of us were not on the council when this was message was originally put on that sign, and I don't think the council would have not approved it if it had been put to the council at that time, and I don't think the council is going to reject the message now. But it's unfortunate that that's where we are as a country, and I guess as a city. Thank you.
Thank you.
We would support a friendly amendment from any of the Planning and Development Committee members, understanding that it doesn't have to be in writing at committee. So if there's an amendment that future corridor planning or similar type signage sponsored by the city requires city council approval, that would be completely acceptable on the staff level.
Thank you. Alderman Rose?
Yeah, thank you. I did want to comment on some of the things that have been said tonight and in past conversations about this development. First, I guess one of my questions, I first want to recognize Third Ward Alderman for reaffirming that idea that it's not a sanctuary city sign, but I do want to address the idea of sanctuary city because I think it's very important for this discussion. And this is for staff. Are you aware of any federal definitions of what a sanctuary city is?
So I don't know if there's a federal definition, but a common language would be similar to what I stated earlier, limits cooperation with immigration authority.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is because there is no federal definition of what a sanctuary city is. And I think that's very important for the public to understand, because what is happening around that conversation or that narrative around sanctuary city is a political narrative, which is meant to identify cities that are quote unquote friendly to immigrants. And I say immigrants, not illegal immigrants, friendly to immigrants, where then that narrative is used to co-opt our policing and our law structures to go in and to target those populations. And I think it's important to understand that this has happened historically here in the United States since the founding of our country. Back in the late 1700s and early 1800s, there were efforts during the French Revolution where our federal government limited French people from accessing our country due to the rabble-rousing of the French during their revolution. We saw it in the 1860s when Irish immigrants were limited due to the fact that they were labeled drunks. They were labeled, obviously they come from Catholic backgrounds, and the nativist populations did not want to see that population grow here. We saw it in the late 1890s when Jews and Austrians and Russians were targeted. In their case, they were targeted with medical exams when they were trying to come to the United States, and the doctors that did those medical exams would look at their paperwork and see that they were Jewish, Austrian, or Russian and deny them on the spot. We saw it in the 1924 Immigration Act against the Chinese. We are now seeing it against Hispanic folks and any basically brown folks in this country. And so I think it's important to call out both the history of this and how our immigration laws have often been co-opted to criminalize immigrants, but also the fact that we have a constitution that protects against this type of discrimination. First of all, being an immigrant should not make you liable to be asked questions from law enforcement. We have this thing called jurisdiction, okay? Jurisdiction means that certain law enforcement bodies can only operate within those frameworks. For example, we have cyber crimes. Who's in charge of cyber crimes in this country? The FBI, because they happen across state lines. Who's in charge of tax crimes? The IRS is in charge of tax crimes. No other body, our police department, doesn't go asking people about their taxes or seeing their taxes. The IRS does that. And I think it's very clear to recognize these jurisdictions because it's important to understand that who implements immigration law in this country? ICE and our Border Patrol. And so what we're seeing here is an uptick in a conversation where individuals want to deputize local police departments, sheriffs, city departments, state police to be their deputies in enforcing this law. And again, based on the Constitution, we should be protecting against that. I think that's very, very important in following our Constitution. And I think it's also important to understand the connection between the enforcement piece and the uptick in the use of private prisons in this work. Is that private prisons have seen major investments since the Trump administration was elected. And I will share with you that GEO Group, which is one of the major prison companies in the United States, saw 100% growth in their stock price after he was elected. And it's no accident that those same companies are housing these immigrants in our country. So I will say it, I will continue to say it. This is no accident that these types of conversations and narratives are coming up because people want to make money off of it.
Just as a reminder, please try and hold your claps to yourselves so we don't have disruption in the meeting, please.
So I'll just end with this. I think I'm glad that the alderman from the 3rd Ward made the change in his language that we're not a sanctuary city. But I think it's important as Americans to understand that there is no federal definition of sanctuary cities. It's a made-up narrative. It's used politically to attack immigrants. And we need to stand up to it because our neighbors are our neighbors.
Thank you for your comment. I felt it in y'all, but thank you for holding it. Do we have any other comments or questions? Alderwoman Meeks and then Thunberg. I'm sorry.
We've been talking about this for a while now. So I would much rather be having a vigorous conversation about the housing framework and really diving into that because it was so important. But here we are talking about this, and I just want to say that I am very proud when I drive into the city and I see that sign. It makes me happy. It's bright, and it says words that I love to see because I believe that to my core, that we want to welcome everybody. And I feel you agree too, Alderman Thunberg, but I just want to point out one thing. Just recently, the city of Rockford posted information about the year-end crime stats. So I just want to repeat again for those that have not been able to read that we have had a significant decrease in property crime since 2016. We're down 35% from 2016 to 2024. And although it's not a continual decline, so I love the transparency, we're down 38% in violent crime from 2016 to 2024. And our homicide rates have fallen drastically since they peaked in 2020 and an individual, I don't know how to say this because has been charged in 16 of the 18 homicides in 2024. So of 18, 16 of those individuals that committed those crimes have been caught by our police department. And we gave out 15,815 citations or warnings in 2024, which is a 48% increase from 2022. I know some people won't like to hear that, but some people love hearing that because that's what they've been requesting. I border the 3rd Ward, so we have very similar residents. And I know what I experienced today, and I have to know what you experienced too. And I'm glad that you had civil conversations. I think that you'll always have civil conversations with these individuals in this work because that's what we are. We're civil people. And I just can't believe that we're having this conversation in the way that we are. But I don't believe that anybody wants to see this sign go anywhere. I think they love it just the way that it is. And coming from a finance department, and your goal is to be, watching that money to want to tear down this sign and bring something else that is not couldn't possibly be as inclusive as what's on that sign right now. I don't understand it. But here we are, in my opinion, wasting a lot of time on city council. A lot of time. And I would rather not do that. So I'm going to stop talking, and hopefully we can all move forward and stop talking about this because I don't think the sign's going to go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman, I keep wanting to say Chuttenberg. Alderman Durkee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with Alderman Meeks. I have no idea why this is in front of the council. If we voted no, what happens to the sign? Nothing. We don't even really own the sign. And to tell you the truth, we all get what the sign means. So we heard all kinds of history that has nothing to do with the issue on the floor. We're running down rabbit trails. The sign's going nowhere. It's got a pretty good message. And I just don't get it. So if we vote no, nothing happens. So I agree with Alderman Meeks. It's a total waste of time.
Alderman Chuttenberg.
Thank you. Yes, and I would agree we're done with this. And crime stats, yes, they are down. I appreciate that. We've done a lot of work on council, and that is one of my biggest things as alderman is the crime portion. So I'm glad you did put those statistics together for your comments. So thank you, and we will move forward and continue to get our streets done as well coming this year. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The item passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. This meeting is adjourned.
order. Monday, February 24th. Clerk, please call the roll. Here. Thank you, Clerk. We go on to Roman numeral 2, committee reports. We have 2 items. One is A, approval of vouchers in the amount of $7,041,217.97. Do I have a motion? Second? Do I have a second? Second. Motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Matter passes. Item B, proposed intergovernmental agreement for a 3-year property tax rebate program for newly built residential construction for single-family townhouse, 2-family, 3-family, and multifamily structures located in the City of Rockford and School District 205. Do I have a motion? Motion second. Discussions. Alderwoman Prunty.
Thank you. Can you just give me an idea of, it's an intergovernmental agreement. Can you tell everyone who's included and who's not included, what taxing bodies are included and are not included?
Sure, Alderwoman. We have invited all other taxing bodies in the City of Rockford to participate in the program. It's yet to be determined what the final outcome will be on which taxing bodies will participate. Last year, it was the Rockford Public School 205, City of Rockford, Library, and Rockford Township. We believe all those taxing bodies at a minimum will participate in the program again this year. That generally represents approximately 75% of the property tax bill. We've also heard from the airport board that they want to participate in the program, so they'll be considering a resolution to join at their next meeting, as I understand it. And we've heard from Four Rivers Sanitation District, who chose not to participate in the program. We made the other taxing bodies aware via email of the program a few weeks ago, and then are advancing it forward now. And just for timing, I believe the school district will be going to their board this month as well. This is the same program as last year. No changes with the rules or qualifying components of the program other than adjustments of the dates.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Prunty. Alderman Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one comment. I will support this on council floor.
It'd be interesting possibly to explore a similar program for remodeling a distressed property. If you remodel, for instance, you have to put a percent. If you remodel 70% of the value of the home to bring it up to spec. So something to explore in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Meeks.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on your committee. I just want to second Alderman Durkee's comments. I think that this was such a successful program the first time, and I would love to see us be able to scale this for other opportunities to increase the housing in this community. So I'd love for you guys to consider it. Thank
you. Ms. Cagnoni, so last year with the participation rate, and I don't know if I missed this, if you mentioned it, we had about 75% of your tax bill would have been covered with the participants from last year, if I read the agenda correctly.
That is correct, Chairman.
This year, with the new participants, with the added participants, What do we have? What are we looking at percentage-wise, do we believe? Did you state that earlier?
Don't have a final determination. It will at least be 75%.
I thought you knew everything.
Far from it.
No. Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to all the other taxing bodies that did step up for this. It does, I think, as numbers show, increase the building of residential units within our city. And I think each and every one of us here back that fully. I'd be surprised if not. So, okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
I have one other question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Beach, I'm sorry.
So why do the other districts not want to participate in this program?
Either or,
Minister Cagnoni,
I see someone over there with his hand going up and down.
Mayor McNamara, do you want to chime in on it?
So, Alderman Beach, there's various reasons. Some of the taxing bodies that take, for instance, Reclamation District this year or Rock Valley College last year, they have multiple municipalities and they feel that they would have to do the same thing for each municipality, and their boards are not at that point that they would be ready to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. 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 Matter passes. On to Roman numeral 3, resolutions. Item A, proposed resolution to waive fees for building plan review, building permits, building inspection, and water connection service for new residential construction, structures on vacant land and lots throughout the city of Rockford. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second, motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Matter passes. Item B, award a bid demolition of 422 Kishwaukee Street and 431 15th Avenue to Northern Illinois Service of Rockford, Illinois in the amount of $26,384. The contract duration is through completion of the demolition project. The funding source is the Community Development Block Grant. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Matter passes. Item C, award of bid demolition of 3600 West State Street to NTRAC Group of Loves Park, Illinois in the amount of $144,000. The contract duration is through completion of the demolition project. The funding source is American Rescue Plan Act funds. Do I have a motion?
So move. So move.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Comments. Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Item D, award of rebid. Lead Service Line Replacement Program Phase 7 to NTRAC Group of Loves Park, Illinois in the not-to-exceed amount of $4 million based on unit pricing. The contract duration is 1 year. Funding source is IEPA State Revolving Loan Fund. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion, comments? Alderman Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the source of funds that we get to do this lead replacement? And if so, where are we in this total loans that we've got out?
I'd like to take that one.
Yeah.
Stab.
So currently we are about 22 million. I believe it was 18 million of that has been forgiven. The most recent loan was an IEPA loan with 0% interest, but we have to pay back.
I see. Okay. Well, what was that rate?
Excuse me?
Zero?
Zero.
All right. And that's over what period of time?
7 years. So there's been one phase each year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Matter passes. On to item E, award of engineering agreement, East State Street Sidewalk Gaps, Phase 2 preliminary engineering to Civil Engineering Solutions of Belvedere, Illinois, in the not-to-exceed amount of $56,875. The contract duration is March 1st, 2025 through June 1st, 2026. The funding sources are 1% infrastructure sales tax, motor fuel tax, and federal transportation alternative program. Motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Matter passes. Item F, resolution approving appropriation of Rebuild Illinois funds for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, Harrison Avenue reconstruction, Phase 2 engineering in the amount of $700,000. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Matter passes. Item G, award of engineering agreement, Harrison Avenue reconstruction, Main Street to Kishwaukee Street is the Phase 2 preliminary engineering to Fair Graham of Rockford, Illinois, in the not-to-exceed amount of $696,700. The contract duration is March 1st, 2025 through June 1st, 2027. The funding sources are Rebuild Illinois funds and motor fuel tax. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Matter passes. Item H, approval of extension, Head Start bus transportation services to first student of Naperville, Illinois, in the not-to-exceed amount of $795,440.44. The original contract started in July 2022. This is the last extension. The contract duration is from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. The funding source is Head Start grant funds. Do I have a motion?
So move. I make a motion.
Okay. Second? Second, Alderman Beach. Motion second. Discussion, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passes. Item I, approval and acceptance of fiscal year 26 Illinois Department of Transportation Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program grant award in the amount of $142,435. The grant does not require a cost match. The grant term is from October 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2026. The grant award, if accepted, will provide funds to pay for officers to work overtime shifts to conduct dedicated traffic enforcement activities at specific times and dates during the program year. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passes. Item J, award of joint purchasing contract, police vehicles to Curie Motors fleet of Frankfort, Illinois, in the amount of $2,208,320. This is a one-time purchase. The funding sources are capital lease funds and the police department capital budget. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second? I'll second. I'll second. Motion second. All those in favor say, or wait, discussion, comments? Before?
So,
Alderman Beach?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take it this was out to bid, and Frankfurt outbid Rockford for all of these vehicles?
Director Haggerty?
Yes, this is based on a suburban cooperative bid that went out. We have used Curry Motors for our marked vehicles for some time. For the last several purchases have been through Curry Motors.
So the bid did go out to Rockford as well?
They had an opportunity to respond to it, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alderman Beach. Are the existing vehicles going to be auctioned off or traded in? I think we normally auction these, correct?
Yes.
If Chief Red or Alderman or Director Haggerty?
Yes. Typically utilize the auction to get rid of the vehicles.
All right. What would you say if you had any just ballpark guess what the mileage is on those vehicles by the time we give them up?
The mileage would vary, but I can tell you with we're getting rid of vehicles that are 7 years old. We went a period of time, 2 or 3 years, where supply and what was available we were not able to get vehicles. So we're replacing vehicles that are 7 years old. With this purchase, it will put us, we will be at the point with rotation where we will be transitioning the vehicles roughly at about every 5 years with this purchase.
Okay. I just needed to inquire because Alderman Barrios is looking for a car.
Oh.
And so they want to take advantage of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion, comments? None. Seeing none. Adjourned. Thank you.
That's a movement.